What's up everybody, welcome back. So in the last video we set up our team deathmatch lobby, and in this video we're going to make sure that we can actually spawn and respawn and that we can damage players from other teams. So as you can see right now I can damage the blue guy, and if I shoot at my teammate over there then I cannot damage him. So that's what we're gonna set up, and if you are dead then you can only spectate players that are in your own team. So if we have time for that then we can also set that up today. So that's what we're gonna do today. If you enjoy the videos, please consider leaving a like, and if you want to get your hands on the project file you can become a member of the YouTube channel or my Ko-fi page, and then you will get access to the premium channels in the Discord, and you will also get access to these project files. So with all of that stuff out of the way, let's dive into today's video. Let's begin by adding spawn points to the level. So we're going to open the viewport and we're going to add the PlayerStarts. So we're going to use the same technique that we already used by adding the PlayerStart tags to the PlayerStarts, and using those tags we can determine for what game mode and for what player they are. So first of all, I'm just gonna make sure that I grab 5 player starts, because a team in my settings is a maximum of 5 players. So let's just copy 4 of these and I'm gonna move them to the other side. Something like this, and then I'm gonna add a 5th one. So let's just copy it one more time. Now the setup that we're going to use here is we're going to call these team deathmatch. And then we're going to add the first integer, and that's for the player index. And then we're going to add another integer, and that's for the team ID. So in this case I want to make sure that for these 5 player starts I'm going to give them the proper setting. So that's team deathmatch, and then the second one is for player index 1 and then team 0. And then we're just going to continue down the line. So we have player index 2 in team 0. And then over here, oh, I accidentally copied instead of pasted. There we go. So this is player index number 3. And then for the last one, we have player index number 4. So I'm going to set it up for a maximum of 4 teams, because that's what I have in my game mode settings data table. So I can grab these 5 player starts, and I'm not going to worry about the rotation for now. So I'm just going to copy them over here, for example. It doesn't really matter at this point. And now all we need to do is change the last index. So we have these player starts for team number 1. Yes, and the last one, there we go. And obviously if we want to use 4 teams then we need to duplicate these 10 again. So I'm going to grab all 10 of them and I'm going to copy them to the other side of the map and make sure that I can put them somewhere around here. There we go. And now all we need to do is adjust those team indexes. So this is going to be for team index 2. And then the last one is going to be for team index 3. So that's how we can set up those spawn points. So I'm going to do the last one off camera. This shouldn't be too hard. And then I'll be back and we're going to start messing in the player controller. So I got all player starts added to the map, and the first thing I'm going to do now is open up my shooter player controller, and in here we want to make sure that we get the team ID that's stored on our save game. So if we go to the beginning, there we have the function load profile. So this will load the profile from the player on the owning player controller. And at the end we have a replicated event to make sure that the server actually sets the replicated variable for the player profile. So we're going to use that. We can continue from here. So let's move this a little bit to the side. from the player profile, we can actually grab our team ID because we stored it on here in the last video. So we're going to break our profile and then we're simply going to expose our team ID. There we go. And we want to store this on our player controller. So we're going to promote it to a variable. That's the team ID. That's fine. And we want to make sure that it's replicated. So we have the server that sets it over here. So if we replicate it, then all instances of the player controller know the correct value. And after this is done, we want to make sure that we set our isProfileLoaded boolean. And we want to do the same thing in the server replicated version of this event. So if the client calls this from here, we need to make sure that it's stored as well. So we're going to copy and paste the break struct and the setter for the team ID and simply hook them up over here as well. So now we have the team ID stored on the player controller and we can go inside of our shooter game mode to start setting up some actual stuff we need. So let's open the game mode, and the first thing we're going to do is go to our set game options, and we want to make sure that we actually add the branch for the new team deathmatch game mode in here. So if we right click, we should be able to get our, oh, this is a switch on string, I'm sorry. So we need to add this manually. So we can add our team deathmatch game mode in here. And then we want to make sure that we set all of these variables and a few new ones. So first we can simply copy and paste these ones and hook them up to the switch on string node. So for the first one, the game mode is team deathmatch. So let's change that one. The match duration, score limit and respawn delay, that's fine. We can simply use them as they are. And then we want to store two new variables. So that's the game mode PvP number of teams. Oh, not a function, but a variable. So that's game mode PvP. And then the first one is number of teams. So that's an integer. And then we're going to create another integer, and that's our game mode PvP maximum team size. So maximum team size. And we want to set those over here as well. So let's grab a setter. And in the last video, we actually added these to our option string. So we can simply grab them from the option string, parse an option, and then store that in our variable. And for this one, that's the number of teams. And then we're going to do the same thing for the maximum team size. So grab a setter for that one as well. Let's copy and paste the parse setting stuff and plug in the result. And for this one, that's actually the maximum team size. So these names refer to our lobby menu. So if we go to our widget lobby menu over here, so we have a function that actually applies the game mode settings. So apply selected game mode options, and over here, let me see. So we have the number of teams, get selected option, we store it over here. Oh, over here, I'm sorry. So at the end, the number of teams and the maximum team size. So if you change these names, make sure they match up in your game mode. Otherwise, you cannot retrieve the options. So those are the option strings. And then we can simply hook this up to the rest. So we're going to go to the number of expected player setters, and then the rest of the function should execute as well. So there we go. This is our new set game options function. Then we want to go into the event graph and make sure that we grab a switch on enum for our new game mode. So let's go to our start game event, or the event handle starting new player, and then all the way down the line over here. So we have the count player spawned with the delay until next tick, and this will make sure that all players spawned into the level. So over here, after the true pin, we're going to continue. So let's disconnect this. I'm going to get rid of this print. We're not using it anymore. That's really old. So let's make sure that we have a little bit of room over here. This is starting to get messy, so I'm just gonna copy it to an empty spot, or not copy, but move it. There we go. So we're right behind the count player spawned and the branch, and over here we're gonna add a switch on our game mode's enumeration. So we're gonna grab our current game mode and we're gonna switch, plug it in over here. Oh, really? So if we are endless wave or free for all, we simply want to continue like we did before. So we're gonna hook it back up to the for each loop with the all connected controllers. And if we are team deathmatch, then we want to create a function to spawn our players. So we're gonna do that over here. So let's create a new function, and that's going to be a GameMode TDM spawn players. So let's open this up. And let's see, so the first thing we want to do in here is get all of the player starts in our level. So we're going to get all of the actors from class and simply select our player start. And we're going to make sure that we grab only the ones that are meant for team deathmatch. So we're going to loop through them for each loop. And from the player start, we can drag off here and we can get the player start tag. So that's the name that we added to the player starts. And if we convert this to a string, so to string or a name variable, then in a string we can actually perform some actions. So we're going to find a substring in this string. So look for find substring. And this basically searches for a word inside of a word. So we're going to look for team deathmatch. And then we want to make the start position -1. So that's good. That means it starts all the way at the beginning. And if it actually finds it at the first index, then this will return 0. And if it doesn't find the string at all, it will just return -1. So we're going to grab a branch over here, plug it into the loop body. And if the result of this is greater than or equal to 0, that means this is a player start for team deathmatch. So if this is a player start for team deathmatch, we need to know for what team it is. So then we're going to grab the string again. And instead of finding a substring, we're going to split the string. So split string. And now you want to make sure that the search direction is from end. So we start at the back of the player start tag. And then for the int string, we're going to use our lower, how is it called? Lower score, underscore. There we go. Oh, really? So the underscore. And since we have the setup for team deathmatch underscore player index underscore team ID, and we start searching from the end, so this will actually return the team ID from this player start. So what we can do is we're going to grab the right string that it finds, and we're going to make this an integer, so to int. String to integer, and then we can switch on int to make sure that we add it to the correct array. So we're going to switch on integer. I'm going to start at index 0, and I've added 4 teams, 0, 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to add those integers over here, hook it up to the true pin, and then we need to get some local variables in here with the correct arrays. So let's start making those. Local variable. The first one is local starts team 1. No, team 0 actually. So that's an array of player starts. So let's look for player starts. Thank you. And turn this into an array. So we need 4 of these for each team. So 0, 1, 2, and 3. And then we also need the local current team to spawn. And we also need the current starts. So let's add 2 more array variables. The last one is going to be local current starts. And then that's an array of player starts. And the other one is going to be the local current team to spawn. And for this one, we want to make sure that we change it into the shooter player controller. And that's an array of shooter player controllers. Oh, really? There we go. So now we can go back over here. So if we determined this is a player start for team 0, we want to add it to the player starts from team 0. So we're simply going to grab that local variable and add an item to it. So we're going to hook this up to the 0 branch and then grab the item from the array. So we can do the same thing for the other teams. So let's copy and paste it and make sure that we change the actual array in here. So this is for team 1 and then team 2 and team 3. And hook them up. There we go. So now we have 4 arrays with the correct player starts for that team. Now let's go back to the completed pin of the for each loop. And over here, we're going to make sure that we find all of the players that belong to this team. So we're going to grab a for loop, not for each, for loop. We're going to start at index 0, and the maximum index is going to be our GameMode PvP number of teams minus 1. So subtract 1 and plug it into the last index. Now we want to make sure that we grab our current team to spawn and that we clear it. So we're going to start fresh every time we start the loop body. And then we're going to grab a switch on integer again. So I'm just going to copy this one and paste it over here. And we can use the index to determine which team we want to get. So that's over here. And then we can simply grab our starts array. So for example, the starts for team 0, and we're going to store that in the current starts array. So hook them up like this, and that's for integer 0. And we can do the same thing for the other ones. And simply replace the arrays. So team 1, team 2, and team 3. And hook everything up. There we go. Then we're going to grab a for each loop and make sure that all of the execution pins go into the for each loop again. And this time we want to grab all of the connected controllers from the game mode. So simply all of the players that are in the game or in the lobby. And from here we can grab the team ID. So get the team ID. And we can simply compare that to the ID from the for each loop. So the index we're using over here. So we're going to drag it all the way to this side and equal to. So if the team ID is equal to the team we want to spawn, then we're going to grab another, we're going to add them. I'm getting confused. So we're going to add them to the current team to spawn. So we have an array of player controllers that we can use to spawn. So we need a branch in here, plug it into the loop body. If this is true, we're going to add them to the current team to spawn array. And if this is completed, so if we know all of the players that are actually in this team, then we're going to grab a for each loop again, hook it up to the completed pin. And we're going to loop through all of our current team to spawn. So that's all of the player controllers. And we can simply say restart at PlayerStart from here. So we can drag off here, restart from PlayerStart. Really? Oh, restart player. So restart player at PlayerStart. That's the correct one. Restart player at PlayerStart. And for the array element, that's going to be the new player. So that's the player controller. And then we can grab our current starts array. And from here, get a copy and simply get the index over here and plug it into the start spot. So, oh, freaking really. So that will spawn all of the players from this team. And since we already have all of the arrays with all of the spawn points in here, it makes our life a little bit easier if we actually set up our respawn points as well. So what we're going to do from here is grab another for each loop, hook it into the completed pin again, and we're going to loop through all of our current starts. And then we can simply get the start tag again and make sure that we add them to the correct array of respawn points. And in this case, all we need to do is add more arrays for the respawn points. So right now we only have one array and we cannot make any difference between it. So we're simply going to make an array for each team that's in the game. So I'm going to duplicate this. That's player respawn points for 1. And then we're going to have 2 and 3 as well. So 4 teams, and I have 4 array of spawn points. So we can drag off here and get the player start tag. And we can actually do 2 integer. Sorry, 2 string, 2 integer. So 2 string. And then from our array index, we can get our switch on integer. So I'm just going to copy and paste it over here. Plug it in, grab the array index, and then we can add them to the correct array. Or this is actually a mapping and not an array. So we're going to drag off here and do add. Plug this into the 0 pin, and we want to add this player start tag. So that's the string, and we're going to set it to false. So that means it's not on cooldown, it's not being used. And we can do the same thing for the other ones. So simply copy and paste them and replace the arrays or the mappings. So this is for team 1, team 2, and team 3. Hook everything up here. And make sure that you also plug in the strings. And that's good to go. So this is our spawn function, and we also have our setup respawns added in here. So those are good to go. Let's compile and save it, and we can go back to the event graph. So over here where we just created the switch on game modes after the count player spawned, we're going to call this function. So GameMode TDM spawn players, and after that we can simply use our level start free for all event to start the game. So level start free for all, we can simply call that. Pretty much all it does is count down before the match starts and then enables the player inputs. So for now we can simply use that event. So level start free for all. Okay, so that should be pretty much everything inside of the game mode. Oh no, we need to take care of the respawning. So we're going to go into our respawn after dying event. And over here we want to make sure that we also add the new mappings for the other teams. So that's actually not too hard. We can simply grab the TeamID from our PlayerController over here. So let's drag off here and get the TeamID. And we also have a game mode stored, obviously. So we're going to grab our game mode. And first we're going to do a switch on the enum. So if we are endless wave or free for all, we can simply hook it back up the way it used to be. And if we are team deathmatch, then we want to actually switch on the integer again. So we might just grab that one from here. Switch on integer. Respawn after dying, team deathmatch, switch on integer, and then we're going to hook up the team ID. And in this case we can grab the first one for index 0. So that's the mapping that we already had. So really, and we want to store that inside of the local respawn points. So we also need to grab the setter over here and store that array. There we go. And do the same thing for the others. So let's paste them 3 times. And let's change the mappings. So respawn points 1, 2, and 3. Hook these up. And then we can hook everything up to over here. And now all we need to do is make sure that from this random node, we're going to disconnect it and simply plug in the array. So grab the local all respawn points and plug that in over here. So that should make our respawning work as well. We can compile and save this one. And then we can start taking a look at the damage for players. So to make sure we can only shoot players from other teams, we need to make some changes to our interface. So we're going to open up our framework interface and open your BPI damage player. And in here, we want to add the TeamID to the event or function. So we're going to add an input in here, and that's the TeamID. And we're going to make that an integer and compile and save it. So now we can go into our player controller. So framework shooter player controller. And in here, we want to go to our is respawn enabled event. So that should be over here. Server is respawn enabled. And over here, we have a new pin in our switch on game mode. So we want to make sure that we set everything for team deathmatch. And first of all, I want to mention that I renamed the is PvP mode boolean to is mode free for all, since we have PvP in free for all and team deathmatch, and I still want to be able to decide which one it is. So we need to change it, or it actually makes more sense to change it. So we're going to change this to is mode free for all. And then we're also going to add one for is mode team deathmatch. So I'm going to copy the variable, and in this case is mode TDM. And then we can simply set everything over here. So this should be good. And then we're going to add our is mode TDM, and that's false. And we want to grab all of these and paste them over here and hook them up to the team deathmatch. So we can respawn, we can spectate, and this is TDM. So there we go. Those should be enabled and the free for all should be false. Now we can compile and save it. And we need to go inside of our hero base character to finish this up. So let's go inside of hero base. And first of all, in the event graph in begin play. So let's look for begin play over here. At the end, we have the branch is server. And then over here, we're actually setting our is PvP mode. So again, over here, I changed the name of the bool. So I'm going to do that in here as well. This is going to be is mode free for all. And then we want to grab the variables from the player controller to make sure we can tell if it's TDM. So we're going to get is mode TDM. And we're actually going to store that on our character as well. So let's duplicate this variable is mode TDM and set it over here. Plug it in. And we want to make sure the variable itself is replicated. And then we also want to grab the team ID from the player controller and store that on the character as well. So get team ID. And we're going to promote this to a variable. And that's our team ID. That's fine. So for the team ID, also make sure that it's replicated. Hook everything up and make sure that you hook it back up to the cast to shooter game mode. And that should be begin play. Then let's see, so we want to edit our process hit function. So we're going to go to server process hit. And that should be over here. So in here, we are actually checking if the thing we are hitting implements the player interface and if we are playing free for all. So we want to add some conditions to it. So we're going to disconnect it over here and we're going to grab an OR. And in this case, this could be TDM or free for all. So I'm actually screwing this up, sorry. So we're going to do it like this. So is mode free for all or is mode team deathmatch? And hook up that one. This one goes over here. And then we can simply hook up our TeamID inside of the player take damage interface call that's already here. So at this point we do not care about our team. We simply want to know if we are free for all or team deathmatch, and in that case we're going to execute this function. And then over here with the TeamID we're going to decide if we actually do damage. So let's compile and save it. And we want to go to our take PvP damage function. So take PvP damage. And in here we're going to make sure that we can only damage players from other teams. So first let's grab the is alive boolean. That's the first thing we want to check. And if that one is true, we're going to add another branch. And we simply want to check if this is team deathmatch. So we're going to grab our is TDM bool. And then from this we're going to grab an end node. And we want to compare our attacker team ID with the team ID from this current player controller. So we want to add the team ID to this function as well. We're going to call this the attacker team ID. And that's an integer. So drag off here and we're going to compare it to the team ID of this player controller. So this is the guy that's being shot, and the player controller over here is the guy that's shooting him. So we're going to plug this in over here. And it's actually easier if we make this a not equal. I'm sorry. So then we can use the true pin over here. So if this is true, then we can simply do damage. So plug it in over here. And we, by the way, also want to add our free for all in here. So let's drag off and do OR and grab our is free for all. And then we can plug it back in. So if this is team deathmatch and we're not in the same team, or if this is free for all, then we can do PvP damage. So compile and save it. And then we need to go into the event graph to make sure that we connect up this new pin. So we're going to go to the interface function, player take damage. And over here we get the team ID from the attacker and we're going to plug it into the take PvP damage. And that should make everything work. So let's compile and save it. And at this point we can have a little look if everything is working. So we actually have a bit of time left, so we could do the spectator as well. That's not too much work. So we can make sure that we only spectate players that are inside of our own team. So let's open our spectator pawn. And the first thing we want to do is go to our event possessed. And let's go all the way to the end. So over here, first let's grab a branch and check if we are the server. So is server. And if we are the server, we can get our game mode. So we're going to get the game mode and cast it to our shooter game mode. Plug it in over here. So from the game mode, we want to get the current game mode enumeration. So we're going to get the game mode variable and store that on the spectator pawn. So promote to variable, and that's my current game mode. And we also want to grab the, let me see. Yeah, we want to grab the team ID from the player controller. And we actually have the player controller over here stored. So this is the player controller that belongs to this spectator pawn. And we're going to grab the team ID from here. So get team ID and store it on the spectator pawn as well. So promote to variable. And that's good to go. Now, no, we don't need to replicate these variables. That's fine. So we have the event possessed set up, and now the server instance of the spectator pawn knows the correct variables. So what we want to do is change the update players event. So that's over here, and I'm actually going to change it completely because what I did over here doesn't really make sense. So I'm grabbing all the players in the current array and checking if they are valid, check if they are new ones, but the simplest thing to do is just get all the players and store them in the array, and then we are good to go. So I'm going to disconnect this one, move it over here. First, I want to grab a switch on game modes. So I'm going to grab my current game mode, drag off here, switch on game modes. So if we are endless wave or free for all, then we can simply get all actors of class. So get all actors of class. And we want to get all of the players. So that's our hero base characters. And we can simply store them in the all players variable. So if we get them, there's no need to check if they are valid or dead or anything. We should be able to just get the array, and that should be good. And then all we want to do is grab the attached player from this spectator pawn and check if that's valid or not. So if we are attached to a player, and if we are, we want to grab the correct index from that player in the array. So we're going to get the all players array, and we're going to find the attached player, and then we're going to store that inside of our current player index. So this is for the isValid pin, and then plug in the result of the find node. So then we know what index we are connected to. So this goes for free for all as well, so we can plug in both of these pins. And if we are using Team Deathmatch, we want to do it slightly different. So first we're going to clear the all players array. And then again, we're going to get all of the actors from class, and that's going to be all of our hero base characters. So we can copy this. But in this case, we only want to store the ones that are inside of our team. So we're going to grab a for each loop, plug it in here, and we can actually just get the team ID from this player controller and compare it to our own one. So let's do equal to, oh really, and plug in our team ID over here. So if this is true, then we want to add this player to the all players array. So let's grab the all players array and grab an add node, and we can add the array element. There we go. So then we know that only the players that belong to my team are in the all players array. And then we simply want to grab the last part from here. So the attached player is valid, and then find the index of that attached player. And we're going to hook it up to the completed pin. So that should make that part work. And with that stuff in place, all we want to do is update our attached to player event. So we can get rid of this stuff, that's old. And then we have attached to player over here. And what I want to do is over here we have a check for the length of the array, if it's greater than 1 or not. So I want to make sure that if it's not greater than 1, that we can still continue over here. So I'm going to add a delay for half a second. And then I'm going to call my update players. Let me double check, by the way. Okay, that makes sense. So we want to make sure that we have another event over here. So we have update players. This runs on the server, and we need to make sure that we also have one that runs for the normal event. So we're going to create a custom event and simply call this update players. Plug it in over here, and we want to call this event over here. So we already are the server, so there's no need to replicate it to the server again. So we're only calling this one from the event begin play or possessed, somewhere over here. So make sure that you have a normal one, so you do not replicate a function that's already on the correct instance. And over here we can simply call update players, so the not replicated one, and then continue with the loop. And I want to do the same thing over here. So that way we do not have any loose ends inside of our loops. And this should make it work. So let's compile and save. And now we are ready to do some testing and make sure everything works. So I did a quick little test and we actually do need to fix something. So let's go inside of our shooter game mode, and inside the TDM spawn players function, I actually forgot to hook up some pins. So over here for the add array items, we want to make sure that we actually add the item. So make sure that you plug in the array element to the other nodes as well. And the same goes down here, where we use the add for the current team to spawn. So we want to add the player controller or the array element. So make sure that you hook that one up as well. So that was a little bit messy, I'm sorry, but this should fix it. So I'm gonna launch a game again, and this time we should be good. So the game is set up. Let's launch it and see if it works a little bit better this time. Counting down. And this time we actually spawn, so that's good. And we are using our team deathmatch spawn points, so we are facing our teammates, and over here you can see the other team is facing each other as well. So at this point I should not be able to damage my teammate, so that's actually working. I can shoot at him, but he doesn't take any damage, and that should be the same the other way around. But if I fire at my enemies, they should receive damage, so that's working. So let's kill this guy. So he's dead. And now if he spectates, well, we only have one teammate, so that's a little bit of an issue, but we should only be able to spectate our own teammate. And we made a little bit of an error there because we started spectating an enemy. So that's something we need to look into, and I'm probably going to do that the next video. After we changed players, we cannot actually spectate enemies anymore. So that's probably not too hard to fix, but at this point I'm not going to look into it. I'm going to keep it for the next episode. So let's respawn, and this time we cannot damage our teammates, so we are the other team right now. That's still working, and we can still kill each other. So that's actually working, and we should be using our team deathmatch spawn point. So if I respawn, I'm still spawning and at my own team location. So all of that stuff is working. There's a small thing, as I mentioned, with the spectator. So we start spectating an enemy, and there's actually a few things in the lobby that needs to be fixed. So for example, if you have everything set up and then go into character selection, this will reset a few options, and that can make things messy. So there's definitely a few things that need attention, but for now we're gonna keep it this way. So thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider leaving a like. And if you want to get your hands on the project files, just join the YouTube channel and you can become a member of the channel to get access to the files. So thanks for watching. Talk to you later, and I'll be back soon for more. Bye bye.